Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Vento Aureo, or Golden Wind if you prefer. And this is episode 11. So, last we left off, we're still in the middle of the fight with Narancia. And we still haven't found out his backstory yet. It hasn't really focused on that. Last episode, though, we did see this assassin team, our current enemies, you could say. And they seem interesting. But Narancia is currently in the middle of his fight with one of them. And this enemy can shrink. He can shrink himself or others. And it's proving to be difficult because he's been shrinking Narancia, and this makes it so that Narancia's attacks aren't as effective, which is obviously problematic. Now these bad guys, this current group, who you could say they're defectors of the gang, they're trying to find the boss's daughter, and it seems figured out that Bruno's gang has her. So, yeah, not good. But it seems like Narancia's probably going to end up winning somehow. I mean, that's usually how these go anyway. Now, since this is the third part of their battle, I'm assuming Narancia is going to, at this point, win. I assume it's going to be in this part. I don't think there's going to be a fourth part to this battle at all. And I also think that if we're going to find out his backstory, we're going to find it out here. Because with both Abaccio and Mista, we found out their backstories during their battles. So, unless they're planning something else with Narancia, it would just make sense to have it during this battle. So, yeah. Otherwise, I don't know at all where this is going to go. I don't know how Narancia is going to end up winning and turning the tide. We're just going to have to see. So, that being said, yeah, we're just going to get right into this. For those who may not know, I am recording this in my room, and the reason is simply because I was not able to pre-record this yesterday. It is Saturday, by the way, as of when I'm recording this. I was not able to pre-record this yesterday, and even now, it's just like I have to record it in here early. I mean, I just basically woke up, so I'm still a little tired. I also have to pre-record for tomorrow. I have to pre-record Loud House still. So, we just should probably get on with this. Yeah. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts, and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so, funny story. I was actually recording this already, my afterthoughts and all, when suddenly my computer just shut down. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? Then I noticed my cord in here. My cord in here is messed up a little bit, so I have to position it right for it to actually be registering as plugged in. I noticed it wasn't, which means that my computer shut down because it ran out of battery power. My computer doesn't hold a charge anymore. It hasn't for years. So it didn't hold the charge. It wasn't holding the charge for very long, and it was basically unplugged, so it shut down. Unfortunately, because of that, everything I had already recorded was corrupted. It became corrupted because it didn't, like, properly end the recording. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I have to record this over again. So, that being said, let's talk about this episode. So, as I had guessed, this episode did finish off the Narancia fight. And we also found out Narancia's backstory, as I also guessed. Not hard to guess based on where the series has been going. Now, before we get into everything else, I do want to mention one thing, because honestly, because my mind was on this thought when I was already, when the computer shut down. So I want to get this thought out first. So this was the 11th episode. And so far in this series, in Vento Aureo, we have had a lot less focus on our main JoJo than in other parts of the overall series, of the overall franchise. Think about it. In part 1, Jonathan was the main focus almost the entire time. There were a couple of scenes, I think, that focused more on Dio. But Jonathan was almost always the main focus. With part 2, same thing with Joseph. There might have been a couple scenes that focused more on, like, Caesar, or Lisa, or the Pillar Men, or whatnot. But otherwise, it was almost always Joseph all the time. And then part 3 was a little different because it had the Stardust Crusaders themselves as the main cast. But having both Joseph and Jotaro, at least one of them, one of the JoJo's, was focused on almost the entire time. With a couple exceptions, but... And then with Diamond is Unbreakable, we had Josuke. And again, apart from maybe a couple points, he was focused on almost the entire series. For all of those parts, for all of the first 4 parts of JoJo, we focused on the JoJo. Like, it was very clear they were supposed to be the main character, even when the parts had other notable main characters, especially Stardust Crusaders. But it made very clear who the main characters were. And this one is different. With Vento Aureo, Giorno definitely had a focus in the early episodes, but once Bruno's game was introduced, Giorno's not as focused on it all. He's had a couple of moments, sure. But even with the Mista thing, he was playing second fiddle to Mista the entire time. And in these past 3 episodes, he's been a background character at best. So it's interesting, and I think it's just because of the way they're doing this part. I think it's just because of the way Araki wrote this part, probably in the manga, as well as how it's being done here in the anime. With the fact that they're having all of Bruno's gang introduced in this way. During each of these fights, they're introducing the different members of Bruno's gang, their backstories, their stands, all of that. So it's probably due to that we're getting as little Giorno at the moment as we are. We'll probably pick back up with him as the series progresses after we've already met all of our main heroes. But it's interesting that, yeah, we are 11 episodes in, and Giorno just hasn't been, like, as much of a focus as you would think, with him being the main JoJo here. But let's get on with the actual stuff about the episode, about what happened. So, Narancia was born into, you could say, a well-off family. They were well-off enough. I'd say probably upper middle class from what it kind of implied. But his mother died of an eye disease, and it's implied that he did very much care for his mother. However, his father seemed very dismissive of him. Not straight up abusive, just dismissive. Didn't really care for him and didn't really care to care for him. Just seemed like to kind of wave him off, and it's said that he yelled at him and stuff, but all we ever actually saw was him just kind of giving Narancia almost a dirty look and just turning his back on him. Again, almost dismissively. In fact, I'd say not even almost, just straight up dismissively. And because of this attitude towards him, Narancia gained this hatred for his father. So after his mother's death, instead of just, living life as normal, he decided to stay on the streets. He stayed on the streets, he slept over at friends' houses all the time. He would get by eating whatever he could steal, because he didn't want to rely on his father at that point. And so, he just basically became a street urchin. A street rat, if you want to go by the Aladdin terms. He ended up idolizing this one blonde-haired guy, who he sort of viewed as a big brother. He even started to try to be like him by dyeing his hair and whatnot. However, this caused him to be framed for a crime that his brother committed, which included beating up an old lady. So he got blamed for the crime, he got pinned for it and everything, and he got convicted. He got sent to prison. In prison, he developed an eye infection, and upon release, he didn't really have a way to get it the medical treatment it needed. So he just continued to kind of live on the streets, where he found out that the bro that he idolized was actually kind of shit. And so he didn't really have anything anymore. He was basically living out of a cardboard box, just kind of going by with people not really caring, people making fun of him, talking about how his mother died and everything, until he was found by Fugo. And Fugo instantly took pity on him, brought him to Bruno, who I guess he already knew, or maybe he was already part of the gang somehow. But he brought Narancia to Bruno and's like, I want to get this guy some spaghetti. And so Bruno, without even hesitation, it's like, yeah, here, have some spaghetti. And even helped pay for medical expenses to help get his eye healed. Which is definitely something Bruno would do, because as we know from earlier in the season, Bruno seems to really care for kids. And he doesn't want kids mixed up in all of this. He doesn't want them mixed up in the drugs, in the crime, in any of this. And Giorno, obviously, is very much the same with that, which is how they connected. So yeah, it also makes sense when Bruno yells at Narancia. It's like, no, you have to go back home, you have to go to school. You're not allowed to be in the gang. And it's like, it's like Narancia said, it's like he wasn't yelling at him out of anger or whatnot, it was just, he wanted what was best for him. He didn't want him to get involved in all of this. And I can respect that. I mean, I can definitely respect Bruno as a character, and his motivations and mindsets and thoughts and all. But Narancia went behind Bruno's back and appealed to Pulpo. And he got into the gang by completing his task and, yeah, I guess was assigned to Bruno. So everything kind of worked out for him in the end. I wonder if Bruno ever held kind of a little irritation towards Narancia because of that, though. But yeah, we saw in this episode how Narancia did defeat his opponent. Despite all the odds being against him, everything going wrong, even a spider paralyzing him because of his size at that point, and wrapping him up to, well, put in the digestive fluids and whatnot, we saw that Narancia still had a plan. He had been shooting up the cars, creating carbon dioxide in the burning holes, which would ignite the gas and everything and cause the explosions. And it caused a big enough explosion to throw his opponent off guard and allow him to, it threw the opponent enough off guard to basically put down the defenses and end out the stand ability, causing Narancia to grow. And so at this point, basically Narancia just had to stop him from escaping, and did so by just setting the entire street on fire, basically. And then he killed him because it doesn't matter if Tiny Feet is faster, because Narancia stands still, shoots bullets. And at this point, being normal sized and everything, normal power, if he shoots the stand, then that's all that matters. Because the user does feel, for the most part, unless it's a remote stand, the user does feel what the stand goes through. So, yeah, he took down his opponent, but only after his opponent had figured out where they were hiding and everything. So, even though his opponent probably didn't get a message out there to the rest of the assassins, it's still probably a good idea for them to leave, and it seems the boss agreed. The boss of Passion had contacted Bruno via email, and told him, hey, go here, go to this park or whatnot, there's a key here, find the key. And it's like, oh, the key, and it's like, the key will help you get to me, to bring my daughter to me. So they're going to go find the key, and it's going to lead to some kind of vehicle. They're guessing probably a helicopter, and that's going to be able to bring them to the boss. Which means that we might be meeting the boss soon. But also, they decide to split up for this mission. So, Giorno, Fugo, and Abaccio are going to go retrieve the key and everything and make sure it's all safe. They're going to send word back to the others, who will then meet them there. Now, Fugo's the only member of Bruno's gang who we don't really have the backstory for yet. And I definitely think he's going to be next. The fact that he's going on this mission probably means he's going to be the one to face down the next enemy. And he's going to be the one to get his backstory and everything now. We might find out how he... I assume we're going to find out how he eventually came to be associated with Bruno to be able to bring Narancia in as well. But yeah, so there was also the idea brought up in this episode that Trish might have a stand. And, I mean, it's definitely possible. It's something I had been thinking of too, of course. But right now it is just conjecture. She might not. It's hard to say. In the JoJo universe, at this point, pretty much anyone can have a stand. You never know. And the idea that Trish might have one is perfectly reasonable. It's completely believable. But at the same time, it's also completely believable that that might be a red herring. That she doesn't have a stand, and it's just a rumor that the assassins believe. Or at least this one dude did. So I'm interested to see where this goes. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't, and if she does, what is her stand, and what's it like? And of course I'm interested to see Fugo's stand. But yeah, I thought this was a great way to wrap this up. I like that Narancia had 3 episodes for his little parts here, while the others only had 2 each. Abaccio and Mista. I wonder how many Fugo's gonna have. But yeah, Narancia's still my favorite. I really enjoy him, and I can kind of agree on that, what I mentioned during the reaction and all. I don't remember who said it, but someone said it in the comments of, I think, the last reaction. Once again, that Narancia is not as smart as Polnareff from Stardust Crusaders, but smarter than Okuyasu from Diamond is Unbreakable. I could definitely agree to that. Polnareff definitely had a little more intelligence to him, and definitely wasn't as impulsive. Though Polnareff did have some impulsiveness to him, sure. But I think that Narancia still has some legitimate intelligence to him as well. We definitely saw that with how he planned things out in this episode. How he planned out how to defeat the enemy, and even took that spider bite and stuff, already knowing basically that he had won by that point. He's pretty smart. And I do like his stand. His stand honestly isn't one of my favorites. But, I mean, I like it. It's a neat idea. And I like the fact that he can have the little headgear to even see through his stand and be more precise and whatnot. Well, he doesn't really see through his stand. It's more that he sees, like, where the carbon dioxide and everything is, but still. It's still neat, and I like the idea of it. But, yeah. Oh, excuse me. Even for this part alone, I wouldn't say it's necessarily one of my favorites. But again, it's not bad. It's not that I don't like it. It's just, it's not one of my favorites. I can't wait to see what they do for the future, though. There's so much possibility, and I have a lot of faith in this series, of course. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for tuning in, and I want you to tell me what you thought of this episode down in the comments below. What did you think of what happened to close out this little mini part with Narancia? What do you think of how he managed to defeat his opponent? And what do you think of the idea that Trish might have a stand? And, of course, Narancia's backstory. Tell me your thoughts on all of that and more in the comments below. But once again, as always, no spoilers. If you know what's going to happen, if you know something that's going to come up in the future, if you know whether or not Trish has a stand, please do not reveal any spoilers for the future. I wish to continue going into this as spoiler-free as possible. In the meantime, though, thank you so much for tuning in. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And though you've come through many obstacles, shed tears along the way, you're still standing, live, love,